A public service announcement brought to you by the Clean Fuels Development Coalition based on the report Gasolinegate. Jack's new knowledge about the negative health effects from EPA-approved gasoline has turned him into a public health and clean energy advocate for himself and his family. Jack's continuing research has led him to an alarming story in the media called Gasolinegate. A story of neglect, collusion, and indifference capped with a cover-up. Jack decided to go to Washington to learn why this public health threat happened and take action. Following on his signature on the EPA Make Gasoline Safe petition, Jack is going to share this Gasolinegate story with his congressional representative. For over 100 years, oil companies produced oil and refined it into chemicals and gasoline they sold to Americans on every busy street corner. From womb to tomb, Americans have been and remain exposed to toxic carcinogenic emissions from gasoline, a very dangerous, benzene-laced product that can cause death by breath. Sound hauntingly familiar? Customers paying twice for ungoverned private gain that makes them sick, leading to more bills and more taxes to the government entities sworn to protect them? Yes, that's the history of tobacco. This is History of Gasolinegate. Henry Ford made cars his employees could afford. Oil companies discovered they could refine their petroleum waste to burn in this amazing invention. Our government taxed gasoline to pay for the roads that built suburbia, that grew the demand for gasoline, that grew the economy, that grew the demand for gasoline. To increase horsepower, oil companies added lead to gasoline to boost the octane, to improve the power to increase the demand for gasoline. The love of cars runs in our country's blood, and so did lead. Classified as a poison, lead was phased out of gasoline and our bloodstreams, but replaced with aromatic hydrocarbons passed through our lungs and into our bloodstreams from ultra-fine toxic carcinogenic particle emissions that account for a huge portion of our nation's air pollution. Concerned public health advocates demanded Congress get the lead out of gasoline. Congress only forced oil companies not to add lead to gasoline, not take it out. It took 70 years and $17 trillion later for Congress to give birth to the EPA and Clean Air Act. It took Congress another 20 years to improve and amend the Clean Air Act by regulating toxic benzene-based carcinogens in gasoline, saving taxpayers $2 trillion in healthcare costs. But for the next 28 years, EPA didn't enforce those regulations and instead created new regulations to prevent development of safer, lower-cost, lower polluting alternatives. That's why the Massachusetts Institute of Technology estimated that more than 50,000 Americans die prematurely each year from transportation fuels, and gasoline is proving to be the worst. How is it that EPA knew the dangerous health side effects, but circumvented public law and civic duty? Emails between some oil companies and EPA obtained through the Freedom of Information Act prove, beyond a reasonable doubt by reasonable people, EPA and oil companies colluded to concoct test fuels consumers did not buy to show unrealistically low emissions from the cars EPA certified on the sticker in every showroom. Emails show EPA colluded with the industry the law requires them to regulate. They worked together to concoct gasoline test fuel recipes consumers would never buy. These unrealistic fuels would make the emission tests of non-oil-based alternatives to the toxic carcinogenic octane enhancers look worse. EPA cooked the books on the test that states rely on to improve air quality standards, and they got caught. Just like Dieselgate, when EPA caught Volkswagen falsifying the emissions from 500,000 cars. Except this is Gasolinegate, and the impact of higher emissions of 263 million cars. EPA's negligence increased the price of gasoline, emissions, individual health insurance premiums, and government health care costs. Consumers and voters pay at the pump once, again when they pay taxes to cover healthcare costs, and again in the portion of the defense bill that protects 25% of the oil U.S. refiners still import from OPEC. Quadruple taxation because of poor representation, gas, tax, sickness, war, all side effects of Gasolinegate. In April, the nation was supposed to receive EPA's decision on the agency's proposed Safer Affordable Fuel-Efficient Vehicles rule called SAFE. SAFE is designed to increase vehicle efficiency and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and related pollution. Unless safe-designed cars burn safe-designed gasoline, vehicles won't emit the safest air possible. If EPA's SAFE solution does not increase the octane standard for gasoline and remove unnecessary regulatory barriers, As automakers have been asking for years and has been endorsed by concerned citizens, it won't reduce toxic carcinogenic octane enhancers to the greatest extent possible, so it won't be safe as possible. By failing to enforce the toxic provisions of the Clean Air Act as directed by Congress, for the next 25 years, consumers will continue to be exposed to gasoline that makes them sick while paying more to companies that use that money to negatively influence the government that is sworn to protect their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But you can change what you buy and who you vote for. It's easy for Jack and you to be a victim. But it's even easier for you and Jack to be a health advocate and a safe gasoline activist. The end of Gasolinegate? Not if you go to www.change.org and sign the EPA Make Gasoline Safe petition to EPA. In 100 years, gasoline makers never volunteered to make gasoline cleaner. They had to be told to do so. Please join a growing number of civic-minded organizations and educated consumers demanding EPA reduce benzene and other toxic emissions to the greatest extent possible by enforcing your Clean Air Act. And also, ask your congressional representatives to make EPA do its full job and fulfill the intent of Congress. www.change.org/p/environmental-protection-epa-make-gasoline-safe. Please act now. The life you save may be your own. Produced by the Farmers Union Enterprises.